Have you ever finished praying at a temple, glanced at the fruits and snacks on the altar, and casually picked one up thinking, "This has been blessed. It must be extra auspicious to eat"? Have you ever joined a big ritual for unseen beings, watched bread, rice, or sweets being scattered, and then happily rushed forward with everyone else, convinced that if I eat this, I will be protected from illness and bad luck? If you have, you are definitely not alone. And if you have also quietly wondered in a corner, is this really okay? Is there any invisible price for this? Then today's long conversation is exactly for you. Welcome back to the channel, my friend. It is good to have you here again. Today we are going to explore a topic that many people encounter almost every week, especially if they visit temples, attend rituals, or have an altar at home, but which very few people really think through in depth. Which offerings can we eat? Which offerings are better left untouched? And what hidden karmic stories are wrapped around the simple act of putting food into our mouth? A well-respected old monk, whom we will simply call Master Ming Kan, used to speak very directly about this. He would say that some things really should not be eaten carelessly. When you grab certain offerings, it may look like you got a bargain, but from the perspective of karma and cause and effect, you may actually be losing, not gaining. So in this long, story-based sharing, we are going to walk through several layers of this question. Along the way, we will weave in broader themes, the difference between simply eating vegetarian and actually keeping a fasting precept, why the tradition of not eating after noon exists, what it truly means to steal something spiritually, and how your mind, more than the food itself, decides whether you are planting good seeds or entangling yourself in future debts. We will keep circling back to the same core ideas: awakening, wisdom, cause and effect, compassion, the practice of vows, the way destiny is shaped meal by meal, thought by thought. And we will see that this question, "Can I eat offerings?" is not just about rules. It is really asking, how much respect do I have for the invisible? How honest am I when I say I am offering something? And what is my true relationship with desire? Let us begin with something many people confuse: the difference between eating vegetarian food and observing a fasting discipline. Imagine a woman named Lily. When people ask about her lifestyle, she proudly says, "I am vegetarian." She avoids meat and fish. She reads labels carefully. She chooses plant-based dishes at every restaurant. Her friends respect her, and she feels she is living in line with a compassionate ideal. But if you follow her for a day, you might notice something interesting. She eats 3 large meals and several snacks. She loves mock meat, heavy sauces, fried food, and late-night desserts. She avoids animal flesh, but her relationship with taste, fullness and craving is still intense. In another part of the city, there is a man named Daniel who works a physically light office job. His diet is not fully vegetarian yet, but on certain days he takes a one-day discipline seriously. He wakes up, eats a simple breakfast, has one modest meal around midday, and after that he no longer takes solid food till the next sunrise. He drinks water or a little tea in the afternoon, maybe a bit of light liquid if needed, but he treats the rest of the day as a space for practice, reflection, and quietness. On those days, his relationship with food changes. He feels hunger rise and fall. He sees how often he reaches for snacks out of boredom, and he consciously chooses to let those impulses pass. Whose body is more pure? Whose practice is better? That is not the most important question. The more useful question is who is using food as a vehicle of mindfulness undiscipline, and who is simply changing ingredients while the same old patterns of grasping remain. In traditional teachings, vegetarian is mainly about what you do not eat. You abstain from meat and certain strong ingredients to reduce harm and calm the body and mind. It is a lifestyle choice that can be practiced every day. Fasting in the spiritual context, however, is more about when and how you eat. The classic principle of no solid food after noon is not a punishment. It is a training in moderation, a way to take out one meal that would otherwise easily turn into indulgence, and to free that time and energy for reading, meditation, chanting, or simply allowing the mind to settle. Old teachers would sometimes describe the day as 3 segments. Morning is when nature wakes up, birds sing, light grows, the air is fresh. Midday is a bright, clear time. Night belongs to creatures that wander in darkness, both visible and invisible. Those who aim to cultivate their higher potential choose to align themselves with clarity rather than with the restless seeking of the night. So they eat when the day is brightened. Let the evening be a time of inward turning. Of course, there is compassion and flexibility for people who are sick, very old, or doing heavy physical labor. A modest adjustment is allowed. They may drink something light or take a small amount of nourishment in the evening to maintain basic strength. The spirit of the discipline, however, remains eat to support practice, not to chase pleasure endlessly. Why are we talking about all this in a video about offerings? Because offerings and our daily food share the same root: our relationship with desire and our ability to restrain or indulge it. Now let us walk closer to the altar. Picture a busy temple on a weekend. The air is thick with incense. Rows of fruit, cakes, cookies and drinks are neatly placed in front of statues. Some are offered by the temple on behalf of everyone. Others are brought by individual devotees who write their names on little slips and place them beside their offerings. After the ceremony ends, a faint restlessness begins to move through the crowd. Someone whispers, "When can we take the offerings down?" Another person jokes, "I came mainly for the blessed oranges." At some point, volunteers begin to remove the fruits. In some temples, they distribute them orderly to everyone. In others, people rush forward, eager to grab as much as they can. On another occasion, a ritual is held not for gods or enlightened beings, but for unseen hungry spirits, beings who wander between worlds, tormented by craving. Bowls of rice, bread, snacks and drinks are dedicated to them with solemn prayers. The leader of the ritual chants words of compassion, inviting these invisible guests to share in the food and receive comfort. And then, after the ritual ends, some people excitedly pick up that same bread or rice and eat it, laughing, "This is powerful stuff. If I eat it, I will not get to Thetches this year." From the outside, all of this can look like charming folk custom. From the perspective of karma and spiritual practice, however, there are important differences that are easy to miss. Let us gently sort through them. In essence, offerings sit in 3 broad categories. There are offerings to enlightened beings and holy figures. There are offerings to protective forces and benevolent spirits. And there are offerings to beings who are suffering, like hungry spirits or wandering souls. Within each category, there are also different intentions. Sometimes food is offered with the explicit plan that it will later be distributed to the community or to the poor. Sometimes it is offered entirely to unseen beings, with no expectation of getting it back. Sometimes people say they are offering but in their hearts, they fully expect to reclaim it later. Why does this matter so much? Because in the language of cause and effect, the act of offering begins in the mind. The moment you decide, this is not mine anymore, I give it to such recipient, a subtle transfer has already taken place. Even if your hands are still physically holding the item, your intention has moved it out of your private possession. From that moment on, simply changing your mind and grabbing it back is no longer a neutral act. It becomes something like spiritual stealing. Let us make this less abstract with a simple everyday story. Imagine you decide to buy a cake for a friend's birthday. You go to a bakery, choose a beautiful cake, pay for it, and on the way to the party you think warmly about your friend and how happy they will be. At that moment, even though the cake is still physically in your car, in your heart you have already given it away. Now imagine that on the way, you start to feel hungry. You think, actually, this cake looks really good. My friend probably does not need such an expensive cake. Maybe I will just take it home and eat it myself. I will buy them something cheaper later. If you follow that thought and secretly keep the cake, something in you knows you broke an inner promise. It is not just about money. It is about integrity. You will probably feel a little unease, even if no one else finds out. The same is true, but on a deeper level. When we make offerings to the unseen, when you stand before an altar, light incense, place food and drink, and say in your heart, I offer this to the Buddhas, to the enlightened ones, out of gratitude and respect, you are making an inner contract. When you participate in a ritual for hungry spirits and join in the dedication, thinking, may these suffering beings receive this food and feel some relief, you are making another inner contract. If afterward you treat those offerings like discounted groceries at a warehouse sale, grabbing them for your own pleasure, you are acting out a contradiction. Your mouth said I give, but your hands say I take back. In spiritual language, this contradiction is not just hypocrisy, it is the seed of karmic debt. Let us return to the story of offerings to hungry spirits. There was once a temple where, every year, a large ritual was held to comfort unseen beings. Volunteers would prepare all kinds of food: plain steamed bread, bowls of rice, simple vegetables, some sweets. The ritual leader would explain before starting, these offerings are made especially for beings who have suffered hunger for a very long time. They have delicate, painful karmic conditions. We invite them here today. Feed them, teach them, and afterwards we will send them off in peace. Please remember, these offerings are for them, not for us. Yet every year, when the chanting ended and the tension in the hall relaxed, people who had been hungry from hours of standing and bowing felt a rising impulse. They saw piles of bread and thought, it would be a pity to waste it. Surely it is fine if we eat a little. And it is blessed, so it must be good. 1 year after the ritual, an elderly practitioner came to see the abbot. She said quietly, Master, every time after the hungry spirits ritual, when I eat the bread that was scattered, I feel very uncomfortable later. Sometimes my stomach hurts. Sometimes my mind feels strangely heavy. But everyone says, it is auspicious to eat it. I do not understand. The abbot answered patiently, to beings whose mouths are always burning with thirst and hunger, even a tiny wisp of scent from that bread is precious. When we offer it with sincere intention, they receive it in their own way. When you then snatch it back physically and eat it, you are not just eating flour. You are eating what was meant for them. Your body senses that contradiction. That is why you feel uneasy. If you truly respect them, send the offerings away with them in your heart. Do not compete with them over scraps. The woman was shocked. She had never thought about it that way. From that year on, she no longer took that bread for herself. Instead, after the ritual, she would quietly make another vow: may any goodness from today be shared with all who need it. I will satisfy my own hunger later in a normal way. I do not need to grab from the hands of the unseen. Her discomfort after the ritual disappeared. More interestingly, she noticed that her relationship with food in general became calmer. She was less frantic about getting the lucky piece and more grateful for ordinary meals. Let us look at another common situation: offerings to holy figures. In many temples, after a ceremony for enlightened beings, the offerings are intentionally shared with the congregation. The volunteers distribute fruits and snacks to everyone as blessed food. In some communities, this is also done at home. A family places fruits on the altar, prays, and later, when the incense burns out, they remove the fruits and eat them together. Is this wrong? Not at all, if it is done with the right understanding. In these cases, the original intention is often something like, I offer this food to the enlightened ones as a symbol of my gratitude. After the ceremony, we will share it among people as a way of connecting with that blessing and practicing gratitude together. Here, the mind of giving and the mind of sharing are aligned. The food is not snatched back secretly. It is consciously returned to the community as a gift. The subtle problem arises when, in our heart, we are not really offering anything. We are hedging, making a trade, or even making a show. Picture someone who buys a box of expensive fruit mainly to show off. They think, if I put this on the altar, people will see I am generous. The fruit will also be blessed. After that, I can take it home and enjoy it myself. Two gains in one move. On the surface, they are performing the same physical act as a sincere owner, but the internal script is very different. Instead of I give, the script is I invest to receive more from myself. From the standpoint of cause and effect, they will certainly still receive some result. They did provide fruit for the altar. People did benefit visually, and perhaps later physically. But the purity and strength of the blessing they receive will be much weaker than if they had really let go inside. Even more delicate is the case where someone vows to make an offering but then withdraws. Imagine a man who, in a moment of gratitude during a difficult period, prays, "If this crisis passes, I will offer a portion of my income to support the temple every month." The crisis passes, his situation improves, but as the months go by, he starts thinking, I still have many expenses. Maybe I will begin next year. Or maybe I will offer only a very tiny amount. It is probably fine. Every month that he chooses to ignore that inner promise, he is not simply saving money. He is creating a crack in his own integrity, even if no one else knows. His subconscious does. That crack shows up in subtle guilt, self-doubt, and a sense of being out of alignment with his own better self. In traditional teachings, there is a clear warning once you vow to dedicate something, whether it is money, time, a possession, or a food offering. Casually withdrawing that vow is not a light matter. It plants seeds of unreliability in your own character. Why does this matter for destiny? Because who you become inside shapes where your life flows. A person who lightly treats their own vows will more easily break promises in relationships, in work, in self-discipline. People will unconsciously feel that untrust them less. Opportunities that require reliability may quietly pass them by. So when you stand before any altar, it is worth pausing for a moment. Ask yourself, what exactly am I offering? How seriously do I mean it? Am I ready to let it go? Or am I secretly planning to pull it back? Now let us pivot to something very concrete, our daily relationship with food itself. Some people chase blessed food the way others chase rare luxury items. They travel to famous temples just to get a piece of holy candy or holy bread. They believe that if they can swallow it, their health and fortune will automatically improve without any other effort. On the opposite side, some people become extremely anxious, constantly asking, "Can I eat this? Will I get bad karma from eating that?" They live in fear, as if any wrong bite will bring instant cosmic punishment. Both extremes miss the heart of the teaching. From a spiritual perspective, there are certainly foods that are more in tune with a clear, peaceful mind, simple, plant-based, not overly stimulating. There are also foods that are heavy, cruelly produced, or soaked in greed and exploitation. Part of waking up is moving toward choices that are kinder, both to our body and to other beings. But beyond the physical substance, intention is everything. A simple bowl of plain rice, offered with gratitude, eaten unconsciously, and shared when possible, can be a powerful practice of generosity and mindfulness. A fancy meal grabbed from offerings meant for suffering spirits, eaten with greedy excitement, can create a surprisingly sticky karmic debt. A small piece of fruit shared after a ceremony, eaten with a quiet, thankful mind, can gently strengthen your connection to the path. A whole altar of expensive offerings displayed just for show, then reclaimed with pride, can actually feed the ego more than the soul. Let us follow one more story together to make this living unreal. There was a young man named Derek who grew up in a house where food meant comfort and power. His parents were not very expressive emotionally, but they showed love through cooking. When he did well, they rewarded him with his favorite dishes. When they were angry, they would say, "If you keep behaving like this, you do not deserve this food." As a result, he built a deep association in his mind. Having more food, or having special food, meant being loved, being safe. When he later became a frequent temple visitor, he carried this pattern with him without realizing it. Each time he went to a ceremony, he would feel a restless hunger not only in his stomach, but in his chest. He would think, "I hope I can get more of the blessed food than others. That will mean I am favored, protected." He became skilled at positioning himself where volunteers passed by with trays. He always had a quick smile and an open hand. When food meant for hungry spirits was scattered, he was one of the first to rush forward. He did not think he was doing anything wrong. Everyone around him was doing the same. One day, an older practitioner who had been watching him for a while gently stopped him after a ceremony. She said, "You are very enthusiastic about temple food." "I see." He laughed. "Of course. It is blessed. It is powerful. Why not enjoy it?" She looked at him kindly and asked, "When you rush forward like that, what are you really wanting? Is it the taste, the blessing, or something else?" He shrugged impatiently. "Is there any difference?" She continued. "Each time you push to the front, each time you grab more than others, each time you take what was offered to invisible beings, you are reinforcing an idea that your appetite matters more than the vows spoken, more than the unseen guests, more than simple fairness. Is that the kind of person you want to become?" Her words made him uncomfortable. He went home a little offended. But that night, as he was brushing his teeth, a memory surfaced. He remembered being a child, reaching for a dish on the table before his grandparents, and his father sharply pulling his hand back, saying, "Elders first, do not be rude." He realized that in the realm of offerings, he had been spiritually rude. putting himself before elders far beyond his understanding, and before beings whose suffering he could not see. From that week on, he made a quiet experiment. At ceremonies, he would intentionally stand a little further back. When food was distributed, he told himself, "If I receive something, I will be grateful. If I do not, I will also be grateful." The true blessing is the teaching, not the snack. During rituals for hungry spirits, he stopped competing for the offerings entirely. Instead, he closed his eyes and sincerely wished, "May those who truly need this receive it fully. May I not take what belongs to them." Something shifted in him. Surprisingly, he did not feel less blessed. In fact, he felt lighter. His heartbeat before ceremonies was calmer. His focus during prayer improved. He noticed that he was less obsessed with food in general, less desperate for special treats, more content with simple meals. Over time, even his face changed a little. The greedy glint in his eyes softened. The tightness around his mouth relaxed. Friends commented that he seemed more peaceful. He understood then that the deepest blessing he received from the temple was not a piece of fruit, but a transformation in his relationship with desire and generosity. So after all of this, how can we summarize the spirit behind eating or not eating offerings? First, remember that intention comes first. When you offer something, offer it fully. If the community intends for offerings to be shared later, receive your portion with gratitude and humility, not with grabbing hands. Second, respect the invisible guests. Offerings made specifically for suffering beings should generally be left to them. You do not know how their karmic bodies receive nourishment, but you do know that taking back what you promised is never a good foundation for your own future. Third, watch your inner contracts. If you have vowed to give something, whether it is food, money, or time, try your best to honor that vow. If you truly cannot, be honest with yourself and, if possible, make amends in some other way. Do not casually shrug it off. Your character is built one kept or broken promise at a time. Fourth, do not fall into superstition or fear. Eating a piece of shared fruit will not magically fix a life built on selfishness. Not touching certain offerings will not help if you continue to lie, hurt others, and ignore your conscience. The real offering that shapes destiny is your heart and your behavior. Fifth, turn ordinary meals into practice. Before eating, pause for a moment. Reflect on all the lives that were involved in bringing this food to your plate: humans, animals, the earth, the sun, the rain. If you can, dedicate the energy from this food to good purposes, to becoming kinder, more patient, more aware. This transforms every bite into something like a small offering and a small vow. When you start living this way, you will notice that the question, "Can I eat this offering?" becomes less stressful. You will naturally sense what is appropriate because your respect for the unseen, your understanding of cause and effect, and your own integrity will be guiding you from inside. At the deepest level, this whole discussion is not about food. It is about honesty. When you say "I offer," do you mean it? When you say, "I do not need to take everything for myself," are you willing to live that? When you say "I respect all beings, seen and unseen," does your hand move in accordance with your words? The path of awakening invites us to align intention, speech, and action. That alignment is itself a powerful offering to reality. Food becomes just one of the many places where we practice it. As we come to the end of this long sharing, I want to turn the question back to you. Have you ever had experiences around offerings and blessed food that left you feeling uneasy, even if everyone around you seemed fine? Have you ever noticed your own greed or fear show up around food at temples, rituals, or family altars? Or have you slowly changed the way you handle offerings as your understanding of karma and compassion deepened? If you feel comfortable, share your reflections and stories in the comments. You might be surprised how many others have wondered the same things in silence. Your honesty could help someone else find clarity and peace in their own practice. If this deep dive into the karma of food and offerings resonated with you, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment below. Your support helps this space keep going, so we can continue to explore together how seemingly small actions like eating, giving, and saying "this is not mine" shape our destiny in profound ways. If you would like to go even further, you are warmly invited to join as a channel member, where we walk more closely through detailed stories, guided reflections, and practical exercises to bring awakening, wisdom, compassion, and clear intention into every corner of daily life. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. May every offering you make, whether on an altar or in your heart, be sincere. May every meal you eat become an opportunity to practice gratitude and restraint. May you never feel the need to take back what you have already given. And may the invisible beings you respect silently support you as you walk the path. Above all, may your relationship with food, desire, and generosity gradually transform into a source of freedom, not bondage, so that one day your whole life becomes a living offering of kindness to the world. There comes a time when you realize you want something that belongs just to you, something that brings comfort and keeps you connected to your inner world. Wall-crafted bracelet does exactly that, quietly, softly, and consistently. If you felt drawn to any bracelet in this video, you'll find the purchase link in the video description, and many more auctions in the channel's storefront. Because sometimes the smallest item can bring the biggest sense of peace.